All right, so that's it. This is the last time that I'm ever going to be doing one of these. And by these, I mean specifically coming on live after Game of Thrones, goes without saying. Um, as is usually the case, I'm still trying to gather my thoughts. Um, so this is going to be a little bit of a, this will be a thing, right? Um, so I don't know. I don't know how. I mean, I guess I'm pretty happy. I think they stuck the landing as well as they could have, given the rushed pacing of the season. I'm still taking it in, guys, and I'm sure a lot of you are as well. So let's do this together, okay? I mentioned, right when the episode started, I mentioned that I was going to be a little bit late coming on live. Obviously, I don't think I started watching the episode until like a half hour after it started. And then, of course, after it's all said and done, I like to sit around and take some time with my wife, and we like to talk about it personally. And so now all that's done, I'm here, and I'm ready to kind of throw down on how I feel about the finale of my favorite TV show of all time. You can say what you want about the last season or two, but this is the best series in all of TV history in my eyes. Best TV drama. And yeah, it's had its missteps over the last few years. I'm not going to deny that. And there's plenty that I have to bitch about regarding this episode, regarding the last few, regarding this last season. That's fine. We can talk about that. But you know what, Morgan? I appreciate you calling that out. That's something that I've noticed. I don't notice it when I'm filming this, the focus thing, zooming in and out. Let me just see if I can fix this. It's a setting that I can adjust when I'm doing my normal videos, the autofocus, but for some reason on Facebook Live, I really struggle. It's like the lighting in here. I don't want to light this too much. And I don't know. When I start moving back and forth, the camera seems to zoom in and out. So I hope that's not too jarring for everyone. But whatever, it is what it is. Just close your eyes. You don't have to fucking look at me. Just listen to me and type what you're gonna type, say what you're gonna say. Anyway, so I don't know. I think that pretty much the way they tied everything up, it all tracks logically. Particularly with, and I know you're saying don't worry about it, but now I am worried about it. I'm noticing it. I can't just, okay, here we go. Let me see if I can just touch the screen and get it to focus on my big ass nose. It's not working. Whatever, it is what it is. Fuck it. And fuck you. So, John, let's just start with, it's over, right? It's over. No more predictions, no more speculation. The show has ended. And so let me just touch briefly on some, I didn't come out vocally and make a lot of predictions over the last week or so, but there were some that I made. No, Morgan, don't worry about it. You should have said it. I'm glad you said it because now I can be a little more Look, I'm getting sidetracked though, so let's just drop it. Some predictions that I had made stemming back from the last few episodes. My prediction was that Sansa would sit on the throne. And I feel like I wasn't entirely wrong about that. Ultimately, the North is an independent kingdom. That tracks. It's fine. Sansa ultimately is the new queen, right? Because Bran, even though Bran is the one officially sitting on the Iron Throne, the non-existent Iron Throne, Sansa is effectively the new ruler, at least of the kingdom that we all care about, right? So that's fine. Unfortunately, I was spoiled on the king, the future king, last week. My wife had to open her mouth about a thread that she had read, and the thread was specifically about leaks. She didn't realize that it was actually legit, but I knew based on other things, it doesn't matter. I already knew that Bran was going to be the fucking one to sit the throne, as it were, right? And I thought that was really fucking dumb you know, when that information was revealed to me, and I wish I hadn't known it coming into tonight. But I will say that the way that it panned out, the way that it played out, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. So ultimately, as far as everyone's story is concerned, I'm fine with where we wound up. Outside of Bronn, I thought that was, I mean, I guess I'm fine with that being the ending. It's just, even this episode, even the episode itself felt rushed. The whole season felt rushed. The episode felt at points a little rushed. It miffed me. But I don't know. I just feel like Bronn popping back in to be like, yeah, I'm the new master of coin, and let's just, you know, whatever. We're not going to address like his threats to Tyrion. We're not going to address his threat. It doesn't matter. He got Highgarden. He's the new master of coin. I don't know why you would even want to listen, Morgan. You hate Game of Thrones. But whatever. I appreciate your loyalty. Whatever. So yeah, anyway, I don't know. I will say that from the beginning of the episode, it sucked me in. Of course, I think we all should have been engaged, if not for being, and even if you were among those who have been bitching about this last season, even if you were among those who have been like one of the haters, right? You should have been invested, at least if nothing else, out of sheer morbid curiosity, right? And I think so. Most of us can at least say that much, if nothing else. So on that level, when the episode starts and we see Tyrion walking the streets, and I think that's all something that we wanted to see. We wanted to see his reaction to the up close and personal. You know, we wanted to see the heroes that we knew we had left: Tyrion, Jon. Because obviously Dany's not one of those anymore. We wanted to see our hero's reaction to the grisly nature of the aftermath of war, or not even war, but just like the utter carnage, the massacre that Dany had brought to King's Landing. We wanted to see those reactions. And those were satisfying enough, especially once Tyrion got to, Master's Hold Keep, or wherever it was that the walls came crumbling down on Jaime and Cersei. And when we see him dig their bodies up, I thought that was a very impactful moment. It was one of two moments in the entire episode that I, kind of bordered on being misty-eyed, right? I thought it was very emotional. Peter Dinklage did a phenomenal job. Peter Dinklage did a phenomenal job throughout the entirety of the episode. But that was a powerful scene, him digging their bodies up. It was extremely powerful to watch him walk up on Dany in the middle of her speech, take his, badge off, throw it on the ground in front of her, and basically just tell her, fuck you, Excuse me. I think we all wanted to see that from him. We all wanted to see him give her what for. And I think her reaction was predictable. There was a lot of this episode, if I'm gonna level one complaint against this episode, it was that it was predictable. A lot of it was, and some of it's a result of foreshadowing. Some of it is a result of just you could just see where they were going. The moment where Jon kills Dany, I saw that coming a mile away. Of course, you don't have that long conversation between Jon and Tyrion and have it amount to nothing. You don't have that long conversation between Jon and Tyrion and have it be Arya, the one to put the knife into Dany. Why is Facebook Live asking me if I want to tag David Locke in this video? David Locke is a friend of mine who I don't even think is active on Facebook at all. So it must be that he has a beard and maybe he shaved his head recently. This is what Facebook does. It constantly, every time I come on live, it's asking me, do I want to tag this bald-headed, bearded dude in the video? So anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Where was I going with this? What was I saying? I don't know. I think I was talking about Tyrion. Was I not? Oh, I was talking about how telegraphed the whole Jon killing Dany thing was. And that's a big problem I still have. It's not a problem. Again, I say this I've said this the last few episodes. If I'm ranking the episode on its own standalone basis, I always give it a higher mark than I do if I consider it within the context of the season. And again, so if we want to talk about Dany's arc, I'm still bugged by the fact that like she took this sharp heel turn out of fucking nowhere. I don't want to say it was out of left field, because I talked about this in the last video that I put out on YouTube, that look, all the foreshadowing was there. We all know it, you know. Many of us were predicting her to be the big bad of the series long ago, years ago, way back in like season 3 and 4. That's fine. The way in which it was presented to us is still bullshit. It was still too fast to turn, because foreshadowing and character development are two totally different things, okay? And so that gripe was still lingering in me throughout this episode. But if I push that to the side, and it's like, okay, we know Dany went mad. She fucking, you know, mutilated, you know, the entire population of King's Landing. She's a villain now. Okay, we've come. That's where we are. We've made. If you can make your peace with that, of course she has to be dealt with. She has to be stopped. Who better to do it than Jon? And you know, Jon, of course, is that honorable, noble character that doesn't want to betray anything. And you know, one of the things that Jon, his biggest character flaw, his kryptonite, is those hard truths. You know, he has struggled with his identity. You know, he's a bastard. He's nobody. He's just going to go protect the realms of men at the Night's Watch. Then he falls into, you know, north of the Wall. He falls in with the wildlings, gains a new perspective, but he's afraid of the truth. He's afraid to love this wildling woman, Ygritte. He's afraid to come to a place of understanding with the wildlings. It's everything throughout his entire journey. He's always been uncomfortable. He's had to face these harsh truths. He's always been in an uncomfortable position. And I think that's the one bit of happiness that we can have for Jon at this point, is that burden, all of it, is now lifted off of him. He doesn't have to worry about choosing a side anymore. He doesn't have to worry about doing the right thing anymore. His character has come full circle. Although where he is now, and this was foreshadowed back in, episode 4. When he has a moment with Tormund, and, you know, he says his quote, unquote, goodbyes with Ghost, right? In which he doesn't say goodbye. And I think that even his lack of a goodbye, so if we can go back to that was something that not only I, but everyone was pissed about, right? His 1,000-yard stare at Ghost. He didn't even say goodbye. He didn't pat his fucking best friend on the head. It was just, all right, take him north of the Wall. I'm out of here. So that should have been a clear sign that wasn't going to be goodbye for them. So I think there's a little bit of happiness that we can get as the viewer. We did get that moment. And it's a better moment than him saying goodbye. It's the moment where he says hello again, right? He reunites with his best pal, Ghost, and his other best pal, Tormund. And he gets to go live that life that I think really is the best life that any of us could have hoped for him. Because to see him sit the throne, he never wanted it. He said it for seasons. I don't want it. This is not my spot. I don't want anything to do with this. Of course, the happiest of endings would have been if Dany didn't go mad and she wound up being the queen and the woman that he had hoped that she would be, and that they could fall in love and have children. And, you know, that's the storybook ending that everybody always wanted. But I think that we all knew that that's not the ending that we were going to get. That's not the story that's been told all these seasons. So I think Jon's ending ultimately tracks with the story. You know, it tracks with Martin's writing. It tracks with everything. And in fact, I think that the end of pretty much every character tracks with the story that's been presented before us since the early seasons. Again, I think that when we look back on these last couple seasons, when we look back on the story as a whole, in the future, in hindsight, yes, we're going to remember seasons 7 and 8 as rushed. You know, we're going to be a little miffed that we didn't get better storytelling, because not all of it, of course, it's not the destination, it's the journey. I don't have a problem with the destination for any of these characters, including Bran, to be honest. It's just the journey was amazing throughout most of it, and then in the last couple seasons, it just got sloppy. And unfortunately, some of our major players paid the price for it. Varys is one of the easiest ones to point out. But again, I'm going to do another video. I'll be doing numerous videos, right? In the next couple weeks, about Game of Thrones. Of course, I still have to put out my review for this particular episode. I want to put out a detailed kind of, take on the series as a whole, because now the story's over. And I might even do another one of these, you know. And next week we do get, you know, we don't have another episode. The book has closed, but next week, Sunday at 9 o'clock, we're going to get like the whole, whatever, documentary on, you know, filming this whole thing. So I'll have some thoughts there as well. So there's plenty of time left for me to kind of think out loud on all this, but and reflect on the story that was told ultimately. But for now, I'm trying to stick with just the episode. And so I never really give rankings. I don't like doing that. You know, this episode got an A+. This episode got an F-. This is 9 out of 10. This is 5 out of 10. Whatever. I'm not going to do that here, because I think it's always been the case that you have to wait a little while and go back and consider the context of what you just saw. And, you know, look, we're looking at almost a decade's worth of storytelling, and we just got our finale in about 80 minutes. And so it's going to take a little time for me to really let my thoughts settle, and not on just the episode, but of the series, and come to kind of a determination of how I feel about it now that it's all said and done. I will say that I never expected a storybook ending. And again, I don't think any of us should have. Martin has said time and time again, the story's going to have a bittersweet ending. This is a very anti-war series. It's a very anti-war story. And so, to that point, it makes sense that Bran, yeah, he doesn't want anything. So one of the reasons, let's talk about Jon for just a second. One of the reasons we all wanted to see him sit the throne was that he didn't want it. And Varys had talked about, maybe the best ruler is one that doesn't want it, right? There's no risk of being a tyrant. There's no ego there. There's no, you know, none of that. So, but then when we stop and think about the character of Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, which, you know what, fuck Aegon Targaryen. He's Jon Snow. Ultimately, his lineage meant nothing, which is another good, you know, the fact that had no bearing at all. Ultimately, his lineage mattered for dick. That's good. I like that, you know. So what we ultimately wind up with in Brandon Stark being the king is a character that, like Jon, didn't want it, right? So that we got that part fulfilled, but also he didn't have the birthright. And Jon was never going to be the best ruler. I mean, you know, we can see it. It took Tyrion really, really pushing him to do what needed to be done. Jon, even though he's like the most noble and moral character, he is still someone who is a human with serious flaws. One of those flaws, of course, is sometimes fear. You know, he didn't fear the White Walkers. He didn't fear, you know, Ramsay Bolton. He didn't fear fighting, but he did fear the truth. And it took Tyrion putting everything he had into it to push Jon to the point where he conquered the fear of his, you know, his queen. He committed regicide. But I don't think he would have done it without being pushed. So Jon has that character flaw, whereas Brandon doesn't. Bran Stark does not have that character flaw. He has no desires. He represents the truth, pure, right? He represents something different. Putting Brandon Stark on the throne is truly breaking the wheel. Whereas Dany, she talked all the shit that she wanted, like, you know, I'm going to break the wheel. I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel. And she mentions that again in this episode. But ultimately, she would have just been a new wheel. And even Jon would have been a new wheel, and probably an ineffective one. Because anytime that Jon has ever tried to rule, he gets royally fucked. So, when I really think about it, I think that Brandon Stark being on the throne tracks with the message that we've been being preached throughout the series. And Jon coming full circle, going back to the Night's Watch, going back north of the Wall. Again, this was foreshadowed in episode 4 where he and Tormund had that moment, and Tormund says, you know, you never know, right? I'll see you again, you never know. Of course, that was laid on really thick. That was a prediction that was easy to make, that at the end of it, Jon and Tormund were going to be reunited. And it makes sense that they were reunited where they were. They meet back up at Castle Black, and then it's like, fuck it. The wildlings, Jon is one of them, you know. And I'll be interested to go back and watch with a magnifying glass, with a fine-tooth comb, from season 1 all the way up to now again, and really pay attention to some of the language. I mean, again, Jon's one true love wasn't Dany, it was Ygritte. And I think there were some moments with Tormund where he talks about, you know, the North is where she belongs, it's where you belonged, and ultimately Jon is a free folk now. And I think that's a good ending for him. He was never going to be happy with the crown. He was never going to be happy ruling over anyone. He was not going to be good. Let's face facts. That's the thing. I guess the point that I was trying to make these last few minutes is that Jon wouldn't have been a good ruler. He's a good leader. He's good for inspiring people. He's a good person. But being a good ruler requires more than that. And I think, obviously, again, Brandon Stark, so Dany had that human element that made her kind of a tyrant. She wanted to rule and wanted people ultimately to fear her. That's how she wanted to make her. That's how she wanted to rule, was through fear. At the end of it, when she realized she couldn't do it through love, she was perfectly willing to do it through fear. And Jon, he never wanted to rule. But his character flaw wasn't like, you know, ego, thirst for the throne, a power thirst. It was the exact opposite. It was, you know, he was afraid to make any big decisions. He was afraid to face the truth. And that remained a character flaw up until the very end, when finally he was able to overcome that and put his queen to her end. So it's pretty poetic, I suppose. Ultimately, pardon me, guys, I've been up for a while. You know, I've been through a few of these. So ultimately, when we talk about the ending, I think that I'm going to look back on this. I'm pretty satisfied. You know, we've been told by George Martin that the ending is going to be bittersweet. And I think a lot of us took that line, that idea, and we ran with it and started concocting all the various ways that this series could have ended. And I think that's, you know, a lot of people who read a book are always like a snob when it comes to talking about the movie or a show, because you're allowed to let your imagination do a little more work. You're allowed to make it a little bit more your own. And I think a lot of people that are going to continue to bitch are those that, you know, had all these grandiose ideas as to how the story should end, and the moment they saw it wasn't going that way, you know, they shit all over the fucking series, and they're going to continue to do so, and they're going to continue to say season 8, the final episode, was underwhelming. The way that it was portrayed, it all sucks. That's fine. Let them think that. I'm happy with the ending. I'm not over the moon about it. I'm not pissed off about it. I will say the only thing that irritated me in regard to this episode was the council scene where, like I said, Bronn shows up, Brienne shows up. And Tyrion like trying to adjust the chairs and then them getting kind of fun. I was like, in the back of my mind, I couldn't help but hear like the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme playing throughout it all. It felt there were portions of this episode that did feel like a joke, and whatever, you know, maybe that's the bittersweet target that Benioff and Weiss are trying to hit. You know, maybe they're just missing the mark so bad that, you know, we had to have those silly little moments. But anyway, I can feel myself getting loopy. Ultimately, those are my thoughts. And I'm going to have more leading up to next week where we don't really, I mean, the series is over, right? There are no more predictions to be made. You know, the Song of Ice and Fire. And of course, you know, we had Sam presenting. I have to pay a little more attention. I mean, obviously, he opens up the book. This is a Song of Ice and Fire. Neat, but I'll have to, again, take another look back at the episode and see how natural that all feels. But like I said, I can feel myself slipping away. I'm not going to ramble on and on and on forever. I am very happy that I decided to follow this series to the extent that I have. I regret none of it. I still think it's a fantastic story that's been told over these past 10 years or so. But it's, again, yes, it's not without its flaws. But I don't intend on stopping doing video-related content or Game of Thrones video content. So, you know, we at least got another week or so for me to tackle that. But in the meantime, I'm going to say thanks for watching, all of you who took the time. Please leave your comments below, even if you're not catching this live and you're just seeing it after the fact. I want to know how you guys felt. Were you satisfied? Were you underwhelmed? Were you somewhere in the middle? And where do we go from here? So, that said, I'm going to say goodbye, and I will look forward to seeing you guys in a few days when I put out my official video review for this series finale of what I still feel, like I said, is the greatest TV series of all time. That's it. Bye, guys.